I've had an awakening unlike any that I've ever had. And I've had many already up to this point. But recently I had uh, my deepest awakening yet, and it was so astounding that I wanted to speak about it for a bit here so that you understand where I'm coming from. Because this awakening was a life transforming event. It feels like from this point on, my whole life has to change. Um, it was just utterly radical realization of myself as God, um, which of course I realized many times in the past, but the most yeah it I'm struggling because there's no words to describe it. It's absolutely impossible to convey to you in any way that you can possibly imagine or understand. It's completely outside of your ability to imagine it in your current state of consciousness. You can't imagine it, you can't understand it. So when I use the word awakening, whatever you think that means in your mind, you have some image of what that means, you're wrong. That's not what it means. And whatever other image you might conjure up, you're also wrong. So no image that you can have can possibly do it justice. So this awakening was so profound that it put me beyond anything that I've studied or learned from any other enlightened teacher. And what I became clearly aware of is that basically no teacher that I've learned from, and I've learned from many teachers, some that I consider the world's best teachers, whether reading their books or watching their videos or actually working with them in person, interviewing them, having conversations with them behind the scenes, and so forth. I've interacted face to face with probably over a dozen what I would consider awakened people, teachers and masters and so forth. And from the awakening I had that I'm describing here, it became perfectly apparent that they're not truly awake in the way that I experienced this awakening. Now, you might be wondering, Leo, you every time you keep telling me about a full total awakening this over and over again, how many total awakenings can you have? Well, that's the paradox of it. That's the mind fuck of it. That's what's so astounding about it, is that you have an awakening and it is total, but because the very nature of what we're dealing here is with absolute infinity, it seems to have no end or bottom to it. And so every awakening you have feels very total and complete. And then you discover that there's more. And that's precisely what makes it so tricky, is that it's very easy to get to a certain point where you think like, okay, I'm good. I think I got it. I figured it out. I understand what I am. I understand what consciousness is. I understand what reality is. I understand what awakening is. But that's a trap, because there's a deeper level that you can't even imagine that it's there, and yet it's there. And there's not just one of those. There's many of those. And it's not that one contradicts the others. They all basically go in the same direction, so there's no contradiction between them. It's not like you're trying to decide, well, is this the true awakening or is that the true awakening? No, they're all true awakenings. It's just a matter of depth. How deeply do you understand what existence is and why it's here? So in this awakening, I became completely my consciousness became so self-transparent, so transparent to itself, that it completely understood how it was creating all of itself, which is basically, of course, you creating the entire universe. How are you creating the entire universe? Right now, you're not conscious of that. Are you? Are you conscious right now that you're creating the entire universe? that you're creating this entire moment right here. Every single word coming out of my mouth is your creation, a creation of your own mind. But see, you're not conscious of that. Not only are you not conscious of that, it's probably difficult for you to even conceive of what a consciousness of that would even mean, how that's even possible. It makes no sense to you from your current state of consciousness. But now imagine that something happens and in a moment you become totally aware of how you're creating everything. Everything is being created by your mind. And this mind is, of course, infinite. It has no beginning or end. But, of course, it can't be really explained to you. The words don't do it justice. Because, I've spoken these things in the past, but it's just a matter of how deeply you grasp it. Yeah, my whole, during this awakening and even now, the process is continuing. I felt my entire mind and body starting to rewire itself to embody this level of consciousness so that I could live from it on a daily basis. But there's still more rewiring work to do. My work is not complete. There's a lot of integration work that needs to happen. And so in a sense, these awakenings are kind of a pain in the ass because they disrupt my normal flow of life. Basically, after this awakening, I had plans for like what I'm going to do this week, what kind of video I'm going to release, what kind of topic I'm going to talk about, and then all these plans get upended, and it's quite challenging because you're not able to live a sort of a normal life where you go to work on time, you go to sleep on time, you have some plans to see your friends, you have some plans to complete this project at this date. Like all this flies out the window with such a profound awakening. So I'm just speaking off the cuff here and just sharing my thoughts with you. But there's going to need to be a significant period of integration and even deeper awakenings. So more work. Basically, I need to go even deeper inside of myself and going into solitude and isolation to really seize on it and to align my entire life with this God awareness. To completely live life as though you are God, creating every single moment. That's not easy to do because we have a lot of patterns, old patterns of how we used to live life. And so undoing those habits and patterns and addictions are part of that. Emotional reactions are part of that. Thought patterns are part of that. Cravings and desires are part of that. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to really be able to align oneself with such a level of consciousness. And so truly now my understanding of awakening has become so rich and so full that I can really appreciate the subtle differences between different teachers and different teachings and different religions and traditions. And basically what I'm talking about now is a level of awakening that transcends everything, transcends all teachings, all teachers, transcends the Buddha, transcends Christ, transcends every master that you've heard about, transcends Zen, transcends Buddhism, Christianity, Advaita, all of it. All of it becomes like a joke. It transcends the chakras, it transcends meditation, it transcends yoga. There is no way you can reach this level of awakening through meditation, through yogas, through self-inquiry. Nothing. None of that. Beyond all of that. So how do you talk about it? How do you teach it? How do you even get someone to believe you? It's unbelievable. Even I, sitting here now, can hardly believe it. It literally is like a miracle happening to you. It's utterly shocking. You completely realize that you're God and that you're absolutely infinite and eternal, and that you're constantly creating everything. Everything is your own imagination. Also, while I was conscious of this, I started to become conscious of the root cause of all diseases and ailments that humans have, and that, of course, I also have suffered from. And that's still a part of this work that I'm going to get real serious about, starting to understand even deeper and to master deeper, because I haven't fully understood this yet, is how actual healing works, how to do healing. From this ridiculous state of consciousness, it's possible to do miraculous healing. It's patently obvious that it's possible. But exactly how it works and what is necessary to do it, this is still something I'm not clear about. This is part of the work I have yet to do. But it's quite clear to me that if I fully go into this work, and I do it properly, that I will be capable of levels of consciousness that perhaps only a handful of humans have ever been capable of on the entire planet in the entire history of mankind. And that literally miracles will be possible. It's a tall order to fill. I'm a little hesitant to even put this out there because it creates false expectations in many of you, because many of you start to think like, oh, well, awakening means that you should be able to perform miracles and do whatever you want, and you should be able to have $1 million and this and that. See, this is the ego wants this sort of nonsense. It has nothing to do with that. So we have to be very clear here that the actual act of awakening itself has absolutely nothing to do with healing or miracles or doing anything or changing anything about reality whatsoever. Nothing whatsoever is changed by awakening. You simply realize that everything that's happening is already your own will and your own creation of your own mind. Now, in addition to that, once you do awaken to that, I mean, that's really the important thing. Once you do awaken, then of course there can be questions about, now how do you live with it? How do you align your life to it? And then, of course, can there be abilities you can develop after the fact from this new level of awareness and consciousness that you have? And that, of course, is going to depend on how well you're able to embody it on a daily basis. So these are separate issues. So there is a potential for doing some amazing stuff, healing, and other what would be called paranormal, extrasensory perception type stuff. There is that potential, but I don't want you to confuse in your mind that if a person can't do these things, that they're not awake. Because there's many levels, of course, of awakening. And at the lowest levels, you're not going to really have enough consciousness to really manipulate reality. But also, you have to understand that the desire to manipulate reality is completely a function of ego. So, really, to be able to do these healings and to perform these miracles, it can't be coming from your ego. If your ego wants to do it, you won't be able to do it. It has to be coming from absolute love. It has to be coming from total selflessness. That's what I understand so far. But even knowing that, I'm still not capable of doing it, because there's just, I can sense that there's even a deeper understanding of how my mind is constructing this reality right now. Even though I can be kind of conscious that I am doing it, I'm not conscious enough to actually change it or to manipulate it. So that requires even more consciousness. So clearly there's even deeper levels. But I just want to be upfront with you. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because I want you to understand kind of where I'm coming from. Because I will be saying things in the future that will contradict things you've heard other teachers say, and you might wonder, why is Leo saying these things? And so I'm explaining to you why I'm saying these things. Because I've accessed levels of awareness that it's clear to me that people that I've studied under don't have these levels of awareness. And you might wonder, well, isn't that arrogant? How could you possibly know that? Again, that can't be explained to you. You will only know that by going through these radical stages of awakening yourself, and then you'll be able to look back in retrospect and find subtle clues about teachings or teachers where you will see that they're still playing games and they're still not fully awake to what they are and how they're constructing reality. And that's because you're not going to meditate your way to this level of consciousness. No way. And you're not going to do some yoga to get there. No way. There's really no good way that I know of getting there other than through psychedelics, and specifically through 5-MeO DMT. Just there's no other comparison. And I know you guys, some of you guys don't like me saying that because you have a stick up your ass about psychedelics. But honestly, you know, I just got to say what is the case, what is true for me, from my point of view, given all of my experience. I've hung around many people who have done yoga and meditation and self-inquiry. I've interacted with many of them. I've done all these practices myself. I've gone to Vipassana retreats. I've done all this stuff. And it's just patently obvious to me now that these methods are woefully inadequate for the kinds of levels of consciousness that I'm talking about. It doesn't mean that these are useless methods. They're useful. But they're not. You're not going to be able to understand the things that I'm talking about with those methods. Does that mean you should stop doing those methods? Not necessarily, because you got to do the best you got. If that's all you got, do the best you got. Better than doing nothing. But there are better ways. There are much better ways that will save you years and decades of frustration. And really, in the future, my teachings will become more psychedelic oriented, because it's simply the most powerful tool for this work. If you're serious about understanding what the nature of reality is, if you're serious about understanding that you are God and how all of consciousness works, then simply there's no better tool than psychedelics. And if you're not using psychedelics, honestly, you're wasting your time. You're just wasting decades of your life in frustration, asking stupid questions, going to seminars and workshops and reading books. You're just wasting your time. That's what I've learned in over 5 years of pursuing awakening and having various kinds of awakenings and doing various kinds of practices. That's what I've discovered. Maybe you're different. Maybe for you it won't work that way, but this is how I see it, and I just want to be upfront about that. So take that into account and anticipate that I'll be talking more about psychedelics going forward in the future because they're so powerful. And so that you just, at this point, I'm becoming very intolerant of people's games and ignorance and closed-mindedness. Like, if you want to follow my work, you got to be radically open-minded, and you got to be super serious about testing all of this stuff for yourself. And if you're not, if you're just going to be keyboard jockeying and sitting there and posting stupid comments and snarky remarks, then I don't even want to talk to you at this point. And I'm not going to be entertaining your stupid ideas and your games. I've been far too tolerant of people's ignorance with this work. And so you're going to see me cracking down and taking a sort of a no bullshit stance and being less tolerant of people's ignorance, both on the forum, in the comment sections, and throughout my content. So really, I'm going to be sort of streamlining my entire teaching to be the highest teaching that can be taught, that has been taught on the planet. I'm going to be streamlining it. This will be a process that will probably take me a couple of years to really figure it all out, to streamline it, and to really help you, those of you who are open-minded, those of you who really are serious about this work. I can help you to discover that you are God. That's ultimately what we're doing here. Do you want to fully understand how you created the entire universe? If you're open to that possibility, I can show you every single obstacle that is preventing you from realizing that you're God. And there is nothing else for you to do in this life but to realize that you're God. That's the only game in town. Everything else is a distraction. When you do realize that you're God, this will instantaneously solve every single problem in your life. Not only that, but it will heal you. It will heal you of every disease and problem that you have. That's how powerful this is. I've been struggling with health issues for a while now as I was doing this work. You know, I've spoken in the past about having low thyroid and dealing with thyroid problems. I've had that for over 10 years, been struggling with that. And it's been progressively getting worse. I've been dealing with a lot of chronic fatigue and some digestion problems and other weird symptoms that were just sort of adding on and adding on and adding on. And I've gone to many doctors, both traditional ones and alternative ones. I've gotten various kinds of healings. I've taken various medicines. I've tried hundreds of supplements. I've gotten Reiki. I've gotten acupuncture. I've got like everything you could imagine I've done. And probably many things you don't even know exist I've done. And basically it wasn't helping me. And it was getting difficult. It was getting difficult just to even do my work. And there was no explanation for what was really going on with my body. And I'm still dealing with those. You know, and sometimes in life you'll face stuff like that. You'll face mysterious illnesses. You'll face problems like this. And so in this awakening that I had, I sort of, in one fell swoop, realized the source of all of my health issues. And really not just mine, but all of mankind's. The source of all disease. In a sense, all disease and all of your suffering and all of your problems, whatever they are pushing you to awaken. They're signs and clues left by you for your own self to help you to awaken. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense probably to you. You might wonder, like, how is cancer a sign to awaken? Doesn't make sense. And you're right, from your current state of consciousness, it doesn't make sense. But when you fully awaken, in retrospect, looking back on your whole life, you'll be able to understand every little detail of your life and how all of it was just pushing you to awaken. Everything, every person in your life, every book you've ever read, every video you've ever watched, every link on the internet you've ever clicked, all of it was like a breadcrumb trail that you left for yourself in order to one day awaken to yourself as God. God left these breadcrumbs for itself. And then it's just a question of, will you follow these breadcrumbs or will you ignore them and overlook them? See, most of your life you've been overlooking all these breadcrumbs. You don't even know that they're there. But the more tuned in you get, the more conscious you get, the more you notice it. And then eventually when you awaken, you'll see it all in one sort of flashback. You'll see how all of it interconnected and led you precisely to where you need to be to go through all of the stuff you had to go through in order to fully awaken to yourself as God. And that is what's so astounding about it. So one of the things I'll be doing now is I'll be going into a period of solitude where I will be working to embody and to deepen this awakening and to have more awakenings along the lines of this one, and to start to understand how healing works and to use that healing, first of all, to heal myself, proving on myself that I will be able to heal myself with these abilities, and then attempting to use it to help others. And then to teach it, that's sort of my mission here. So that's what I'm up to. Will it work? I don't know. There's no guarantees, but I have a vision that it's possible and that this is the most worthwhile thing for me to do. So I'm going to follow on that intuition and on that vision and see how far I can get. Again, there's no guarantees. It's definitely risky, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I have been struggling with these health issues. They've been quite debilitating. Some days it's been difficult to just even do any work at all. And I think the reason ultimately that I'm facing these health issues, I have a good diet and so forth, so it's not that. It's really, it's a hurdle that I need to overcome, which is part of my spiritual path, is that I need to overcome this and be able to heal myself so that then I have a deep personal understanding of what it's like to be ill, of what it's like to suffer. You see, because if my path was easy, then I would never have the kind of compassion that I will have after having gone through the kind of torture that I'm going through right now. So in a sense, you might say I am creating my own torture so that the awakening can be all the more deeper, and so that I can do profound work in the years and decades to come. At least that's my best current understanding of it. Because no traditional approaches help. No traditional medicine helps, and not even alternative stuff helps. So it's pretty clear to me, though, that I can heal myself, but it's going to take a lot of work. I still have a lot of work to do on myself. And so really what's happening is that the universe is sort of grooming me to become its vehicle for transmitting the highest teachings. But to do that requires enormous inner purification, spiritual purification, which I still have yet to do. I mean, I've done a lot of it already, but a lot more of it yet to do to really be able to live up and to lead at the kind of level that I know I'm capable of. And so that's the work that I have cut out for myself that I need to do. And to do that work, I have to take a step back from Actualized.org and from releasing the kind of weekly content that I currently release. So what I'll be doing going forward right now is I'm going to be taking 30 days off, and I'm going to spend these 30 days in isolation, working on myself, doing this stuff that I was just explaining. And I'm going to see how far I can get in those 30 days. Maybe I'll come back after 30 days and resume the normal content. But maybe it'll take me longer. Maybe it'll require 60 days. Maybe it'll require 90 days. If it will, then I'll take that time, and I will let you guys know on my blog when I'm coming back, when I anticipate I'm coming back. But eventually, after 60 or 30 or 90 days, whatever it's going to be, I'm going to come back, and the content is going to resume, but it's going to be at a new level, and you're going to see that it's going to be at a new level, and I'm going to be at a new level. And overall, what you should be seeing in me right now is already the transformation is happening. My mind and my body is already currently in the process of getting rewired to take me to the next level of teaching and embodiment of this work. And so that's just going to be continuing. I don't know how long the process will take. Might take a month, might take 3 months, might take 6 months. I don't know. So I got to just kind of play it by ear. We'll see how it goes. But of course, the intention, as always, is to come back and to do the work even better. So of course, the videos, one of my biggest challenges is that there's so much content that I want to shoot, hundreds of videos that I have planned, so many important topics, so many things to teach you guys, that I don't have enough time and energy in the day to do that to the kind of level that I want to do it at. So And so it's very challenging for me to, to even take 30 days off. It's very challenging because there's so much I want to share. So one of my biggest challenges is that on the one hand, I just want to share, and there's just this pure desire, pure selfless desire, just to share and to share insights and to teach. There's that. On the other hand, there's a need to go inside and to really go into solitude and to not teach and just to master my own self-understanding at deeper and deeper levels, and just to become more and more conscious and more spiritually pure, so that I can then come back and just do that teaching work at a even greater level. And so what you're going to see over the next 6 months, let's say, is a complete transformation of who I am, my energy, my abilities. You might see changes in my teaching style. And so I'm just warning you of that. From your point of view, they might not all seem positive. It might seem like I'm getting more serious, for example, and you might perceive that as some sort of negative. Or it might seem that I'm getting too philosophical, or I'm getting too abstract, or I'm getting too impractical. All of how you interpret it, how you see it, depends on where you are in your life and what you feel you need. So as my teachings become more and more advanced, of course, they're going to appeal to fewer and fewer people. They're going to be misunderstood by more and more people. They're going to be demonized more, because now we're really getting serious and really blunt about getting you to understand that you're God. And just that very idea that you're God, just that very idea doesn't sit very well with people. But this is how it has to be. And so, yeah, I have to go through a process of figuring out how to live life in a new way that's aligned with these radical awakenings that I'm having. And it's a challenging process. And, if you're going to be realizing that you're God, well, you're going to probably be going through a similar process to me. It'll be a challenging process for you. It's going to turn your whole life upside down. And you probably will feel like you're lost, and you won't know which way to go for some period in your life. You might get depressed. You might have health issues. Who knows what might come up. There are a lot of potential side effects and variables. And it's all of these which are holding you back from really fully awakening to yourself as God, because you really do need a complete shedding of your old skin. It's just like a snake shedding its skin, or a lobster shedding its carapace to grow bigger. But that process, when the lobster is in the process of shedding its carapace, it's vulnerable for some number of days because its new shell isn't fully hardened yet. And so that's a vulnerable, dangerous time. And yet that's what you got to do to grow to ever higher heights. See? Yeah, this is the most amazing work that you can possibly do. I think the most amazing thing is just realizing at greater and greater levels that you are constructing everything here. All of this is your own mind at work. And so with awakening, what's happening is that you're discovering more and more that you're God, that you're the only being in the universe, and that you are constructing everything around you, including all people, all things, animals, beings, everything. You're also constructing all of your spiritual ideas, all of your spiritual techniques and teachings. You're constructing and imagining all of that as well. It's the most astounding thing to realize that you're doing it all. And yet, that's the ultimate truth. You are the truth. You are consciousness. You are infinite. You are love. So all of those things still stand. That's not changing. We're actually just doubling down on all of that. So going forward in the future, what am I going to be teaching? The core of my teaching is going to be the following. You are God. There's zero separation between you and God. Not only is it that you are an avatar of God, but there's not even an avatar of God. Everything is God. You are God without even an avatar. Even to say that you're an avatar of God is too far removing you from God. You are absolutely God with absolutely zero separation between you and what God is. But you have no idea what God is. God doesn't know itself until it becomes conscious of itself. So that's what the process of awakening is. So that's the core of my teaching. Next is that there is nothing but consciousness. God is infinite consciousness, and everything is made out of consciousness, and there cannot be anything but consciousness. That's another core pillar of my teaching. Another core pillar of my teaching is that there's nothing but states of consciousness, and everything at all times is a state of consciousness. So, however you are, whatever you are, that constitutes your state of consciousness. And then if you're some other way, that's a different state of consciousness. And so all there is are these different states of consciousness. Some states of consciousness are more self-conscious than others. And there's nothing but that. Another core teaching is going to be love, that you are love. Love is absolute. You are completely selfless. You are so in love with yourself that you construct an infinite universe out of your love. And that this love is the antidote to all of your problems and to all fear. When you become fully conscious that you are everything, that you are God, that you are the universe, you're going to love yourself completely for the first time in your life. Not just yourself, not just your body, but yourself, meaning everything. You're going to love your entire creation. And only through that love will you understand what God is and why the creation exists as a product of your love for your own self. And at that point, there will not be any more fear, because all fear is fear of your own self, which only comes from a lack of self-awareness. When you have total self-awareness, when you are completely transparent to yourself, there cannot be any fear. Fear becomes impossible. Because fear is just fear of those aspects of yourself which you have disconnected from and which you have stopped loving. But when you love all aspects of yourself, what can you possibly fear? And of course, you're immortal, you're eternal. So you ain't going anywhere. You have no beginning and you have no end. So that will be a core teaching going forward. Radical open-mindedness is going to be a core pillar of my teaching going forward. We still have more to talk about with open-mindedness. A lot of topics within epistemology. We're going to be talking about how science works, deconstructing science, helping you to understand that, and many, many other important topics. And so basically, what this teaching is going to be is it's going to be me helping you to remove various obstacles from your stream of consciousness which are preventing you from realizing that you're God, that you're consciousness, that you're infinite, that you're love. So that's all that we're doing with this work. It's just we're removing these obstacles. But these obstacles exist in many domains. These obstacles exist in the domain of sexuality and relationships. They exist within the domain of money and career, taking care of yourself financially. They exist within the domain of health, physical, nutrition, exercise. They exist within the domain of epistemology. So that's why we talk about epistemology so much, is because the epistemic blocks are really preventing you from realizing that you're God. They exist within the domain of science because you don't really understand how science works, for example, or what reason or what logic are or what language are. These things prevent you from realizing that you're God. And many, many other domains, which we've covered in the past. But I want you to see all of that in this sort of overarching big picture perspective. Like, the reason we're talking about all these domains is ultimately because we're trying to get your mind free of its own internal obstacles and resistance to awaken to the fact that you're God at some point. And so for each of you, that will be a long and different drawn out process, depending on what your obstacles are. For some of you, it's going to be the religion that you were brainwashed with when you were a child, whether it's Christianity or Islam or Buddhism or whatever. For others of you, it will be your constricting sense of atheism and nihilism and materialism, your scientism. It will be that, or your rationalism. For others of you, it will be your closed-mindedness to the idea that you could be God because you assume God must be separate from you. For others, it will be fear of being abandoned, fear of people not liking you, fear of not getting sex, fear of not having enough money, fear of not knowing how to survive in life, fear of living in a bad part of the world where life is dangerous and difficult. So all of these sort of fears and obstacles that you have, projections and biases and defense mechanisms and ways that you're misusing your mind, all of this, these are just forms of resistance against waking up to yourself as God. That's all they are, including all of your health problems as well. Whatever they are. Mental health, physical health, it's all just resistance to you waking up as God. Really, they're wake-up calls. See, life is pinging you in a subtle manner with signals and signs all the time that you need to wake up. That's what suffering is about. But what do? You ignore these signals because you want to keep going through life the way you've always gone through it. And you hope that you can get the benefits of changing yourself without ever really changing yourself. You see, the problem here is that all of your problems in life come from you being who you are. And you think you can outsmart life by maintaining who you are, but just changing the outcomes and the results that you're getting. So you think that right now, if you're not getting enough money or enough sex, or you're depressed or whatever problem you might have right now, you think, oh, well, what's the magic pill that I can just, what technique can I use to change that part of my life so that I'm no longer depressed, or I'm no longer, desperate for sex and no longer needy, and I'm, no longer struggling with money. But the deeper thing you don't understand is that it's you who's the cause of all those. The root cause is you. So for you to change those outcomes, what really needs to happen is that you need to change your own self. But that's the last thing you want to change, is yourself. You want me to give you techniques that you can get the results you want without you having to change yourself. That's what you really want from me and this channel. But that's not what I'm going to give you. What I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you a way to transcend and to kill that part of yourself which is responsible for all the bad results that you get. It's through the death of that part and through an expansion of your sense of identity, of who you are. That's what's really going to solve all of your problems. And of course, that's what you don't want, because you're afraid of what will happen when that part of you dies. That whiny, bratty, arrogant, selfish child within you that wants its life to go smoothly, that wants to be happy and excited all the time. That part of you needs to die. See? And then on its corpse will stand the new you, the larger you, the stronger you, the selfless you, the true you as God, who will be able to live a life in peace and happiness and joy and fulfillment. And then you'll see that you could never have lived this kind of life through the old you. And so that's the challenge with all of this work, is that we're talking about changing you at very deep and fundamental levels. But the problem is you don't want to change because that inner child in you is terrified that it's going to die, because it is, if you keep going down this road. But of course, the secret is that its death will not be the death of you, it will actually be the flourishing of you, the higher you. You don't really want to change. You don't want to change your lifestyle. You don't want to change your worldview. You don't want to change your mind. You don't want to admit you've been wrong. You don't want to open your mind to new perspectives and new possibilities. You don't want to change your diet. You don't want to change how you view the opposite sex. You don't want to change your relationship to society. You don't want to change how you interact with your family. You're comfortable with all of these things as you've been doing them. And you think that the way you are doing all these things is correct and good. And maybe it is to a certain extent, but it will only get you to where you currently are. It won't get you any higher. There's a limit to how high you can go being who you currently are if you insist on doing things fundamentally as you've always done them. If you're going to only make changes on the periphery without really going to the core of changing your own self, that's the really dangerous work, then your improvements in life will also only be on the periphery. It's going to be window dressing. It's not going to be a deep transformation of your life, because at the core of it will still be that rotten, arrogant, bratty, closed-minded, ideological, clingy self. That inner child of yours will still be running the show. And that's really what's creating your suffering and your deepest problems, and keeping you from fully flourishing into your full potential as what you really are, which is God. Imagine living the rest of your life from a place of consciousness that you are God, the creator of all of life, not a victim of it, so that things aren't just happening to you, but that you truly take back your full authority and power. That's what we're talking about here. That's what you really want. And everything else that you want, whether it's sex, a marriage, children, a car, a big house, a fast yacht, or a lot of money, All of that, this is tangential to getting your own self in order. See, the problem is that your own sense of self is out of whack. And it's corrupted by falsehood, by bias. You're looking at all of reality in a biased way to try to serve yourself, thinking that you have to do this and keep doing it, otherwise you're going to die. And so you keep playing this game, you keep juggling these balls, trying to maintain life, trying to survive, trying to play various social games. And deep down, it's eating away at your soul, you see. It's making you depressed. It's making you anxious and fearful and sick, causing physical sickness in you. All these games that you play, because fundamentally, all of these games are a distraction. And all of the ways in which you see the world are false, they're biased. You think you need to keep looking at the world in this biased way because it serves you, and you're afraid of what will happen otherwise. But if you just let go and you pursue the truth, eventually what will happen is that you will purify all the falsehood and biases out of you, and then what will happen is you will become fully selfless, infinitely selfless. That's when you become God, when you're infinitely selfless. Then you realize that you've been creating all of this, that all of this is your own dream. And then finally you can reconfigure your life to live in alignment with the truth rather than falsehood. You can look at reality in a selfless, unbiased way. And then you can become a leader and a vehicle for truth and consciousness in the world. And then you can finally be satisfied with yourself. See, you're never going to be satisfied with having less than your full, infinite, selfless self. As long as you don't realize that you're God, you're never going to be satisfied in life. Never. Because deep down, the truth is that you're God. So anything less than that, anything less than infinite, anything less than absolute love, anything less than absolute consciousness is not going to satisfy you. It's going to be only temporary. And that's what all of life is. It's a process of God realizing itself. And it's just a question of what are the different obstacles it's going to go through. There are so many different paths. It's like tunnels. It's almost like God is taking different tunnels, different wormholes. All of them ultimately lead back to the same place. But these wormholes and tunnels can be very different. You know, they sink around and loop around like a maze, and they go in all sorts of twisted different directions. And that's the trip that life is. Life is, you know, whichever wormhole you're currently going through. So that's the only game in town. There's no other game really here for you to play once you realize this. So my question to you is, are you willing to change yourself? How much are you willing to change yourself? Are you willing to change yourself so much that it scares you as to how different you will be after the change? That's what's necessary here. That kind of seriousness. Because there are many scary changes that you're going to have to make to really get your life to go the way you want. You went into this whole process of self-improvement and spirituality thinking that you'll just make a few tweaks here and there and then you'll be good. But then you're shocked to discover that the problem is way worse than you think. It's 1,000 times worse than you ever thought. There are so many deeper problems in you. You start to discover so much rot and corruption in you. Your whole mind is like a cancer or like a rotted out tree stump that needs major reconstructive surgery to get back to its healthy condition. But the beautiful thing is that even though the work is 1,000 times more challenging and more comprehensive than you ever imagined, the fruit of completing the work is going to be 1,000,000 times more amazing than you ever imagined. So you underestimated the workload, but you even more so underestimated what's actually possible, because you came into this thing thinking like, oh, well, if I just get a little bit more sex and a little bit more money and a little bit more happiness in my life and a little bit more health and a little bit nicer house, I'll be good. That's what you came in with. You didn't expect that you would get the entire universe in return. You didn't expect that you would get God in return. But that is what you will ultimately get if you go to the very end of this work. And so I'll be here to help you to identify those obstacles, get over those various obstacles in your own mind, because that's all it is. Just various obstacles in your own mind is what's preventing you from realizing that you're God. A lot of social conditioning, a lot of bad stuff that your parents taught you, that your school teachers taught you, that your university taught you, a lot of bad books you've read, a lot of bad spiritual teachers you've listened to, a lot of your own personal hang-ups and neuroses, a lot of stuff from the past when you were abused or mistreated by people, all the lack of love you received throughout your childhood and your teenage years, all of the broken heart relationships you've had, and all the times you were screwed over in business and with your finances. All of this, all of the threats you received in your life, all the bullying you got, all the illnesses that you suffered through, all of that, fundamentally, that lack of love is what is creating the suffering in you, and also creating a sense of seeking. Because what you truly seek without knowing what you seek is you seek infinite love. And you just seek it through very finite means, like through food or through drugs or through sex or through a house or through a car or through a yacht or through a career. But none of those will be enough to get you there. You have to go at it directly to realize that you are infinite love. And so that's what I'll be helping you with, to realize that. And then in the whole process of that is opening up your mind more and more and more and more, breaking down the different walls, breaking down your religious paradigms, materialistic paradigms, and so forth, until one day you could have one of these radical, astounding awakenings that I've been experiencing lately, and that I want you to experience for your own self. So there it is. I got a lot of work to do. I'm going to get to work on myself. I recommend you get to work on yourself, and then we'll reconvene in a month's time or in 2 months' time, whatever it takes. But definitely I will be back. All right, that's it for me here. Come check out my website. On there, you will find the Life Purpose course, the book list, the forum, all of those, my blog as well. All of those are still going to be active. Well, not so much my blog. I won't be posting much on my blog in the next month or two, but everything else will still be active. If you want to buy a course or book list, that will still be available to you. The forum will still be active. You can come and sign up. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can at patreon.com/actualized. I appreciate your support. Because, taking these months off is also not very good for business. I don't earn that much money when I take time off. So there's that. And there's a giant catalog of my videos for you to watch. 300-400 videos at this point I got. I get the feeling that most of you don't watch most of my videos. There's a lot of deep content in there, and you're gonna have to watch my videos more than once to really get everything from them, because they're extremely dense with wisdom and information. So go rewatch some of those, watch old ones you haven't watched yet. take notes on them, start to construct this stuff. It's going to take you a few years of just watching my content just to even get an idea of what the terrain looks like here. So don't feel bad about doing that. Don't feel like you're wasting your time watching videos. You're not. If you're watching one of my videos, it ain't like you're watching some other video on YouTube. There's a big difference between my videos and all other videos on YouTube. You're getting something very different here. This is serious stuff. That's why they're long. That's why they're dense. Not all YouTube videos are made alike. YouTube is just a platform. It's easy to waste a lot of your time on YouTube, but also you can find stuff on YouTube that will transform your life. That's what you found here. So keep mining this rich vein, and I'll come back and supply you with some more juicy episodes pretty soon in the future. So see you then.